Hey everyone, welcome to this explainer. If you're gearing up for your A-level ethics exam and John Stuart Mill's utilitarianism is making your head spin, you are exactly where you need to be. Today we're building the ultimate study guide to help you absolutely crush this topic. So, if you've been struggling to grasp exactly how Mill differs from his predecessor or how to clearly define his rules for your essays, we've got you covered. All right. Here is our blueprint for today. We're going to break these complex ethical theories down into 5 key modules so you can easily digest and review them. We'll start with Bentham versus Mill, explore higher and lower pleasures, unpack the harm principle and sovereignty, define rule utilitarianism, and finally, look at strong versus weak rules.
Module 1. Bentham versus Mill. Let's establish exactly how and why Mill took a sharp left turn away from Jeremy Bentham's original theory of utilitarianism.
So here's the big juxtaposition you need to understand. Bentham was all about the raw quantity of pleasure, right? His whole principle of utility focused heavily on calculating individual situations in isolated moments. But Mill looked at that and argued that this approach completely missed the crucial quality of higher human happiness. Now, make no mistake, Mill was absolutely still a hedonist. He believed happiness was incredibly important. But he passionately argued that not all forms of happiness are created equal. Basically, quality matters just as much, if not way more, than mere quantity.
Which brings us to Module 2, Higher and Lower Pleasures. This is really the beating heart of Mill's whole philosophy.
Now, you're going to want to lock in this exact definition for your exam. Mill coined this idea of higher pleasures. What are they? They are qualitative, intellectual pursuits that allow human beings to fulfill their highest potential. When we engage our higher faculties through things like reading brilliant literature, writing poetry, or getting lost in complex music, we are achieving a totally superior type of happiness. For Mill, this isn't just about tallying up points of pleasure, it's about the fulfillment of higher human ideals.
On the flip side, we have lower pleasures. These are merely your basic, raw physical desires. Eating, drinking, having sex, the physical stuff we basically share with non-human animals. And Mill was pretty firm on this. He believed we shouldn't just stoop to the level of mere animals simply to satisfy those basic urges. Sure, a good meal brings pleasure, but it doesn't engage the unique intellect that makes us truly human.
And honestly, nothing sums this up better than Mill's own words. This is an absolute goldmine quote for your essays. Better Socrates dissatisfied than a fool satisfied. Better a man dissatisfied than a pig satisfied. It's such a powerful point. He's literally telling us that seeking true intellectual human fulfillment, even if it comes with the growing pains of dissatisfaction or deep questioning, like Socrates experienced, is objectively better than simply being a content, unthinking creature whose only joy comes from a full stomach.
To really cement this debate in your mind, think about the classic example of the flower seller. From Mill's perspective, society should actively educate a poor flower seller, elevating her mind so she can fulfill her highest potential and actually enjoy something like the opera. But Bentham pushes right back. His critical perspective argues that preferring the opera over a bottle of gin doesn't make you morally superior at all. In fact, he claimed these higher values are just elitist idiosyncrasies of taste. Definitely drop that evaluation into your exam answers to show you see both sides.
All right, moving right along to Module 3, the harm principle and sovereignty. Let's explore how this qualitative philosophy actually functions within a society. Well, Mill actually positively developed Bentham's approach by introducing the harm principle. You see, Bentham's theory ran the dangerous risk of allowing a massive majority to benefit at the direct expense of a smaller group, basically the tyranny of the majority. Mill's harm principle shuts that down by limiting the actions of individuals and society. It strictly states that the majority cannot interfere with a minority unless they are explicitly doing so to prevent harm to other individuals. This was a total game changer because it ensures that the whole society is protected, not just the biggest group in the room.
But this raises a really fascinating question. How does this specific harm principle tie into Mill's somewhat unusual belief for a utilitarian? The idea that the individual is sovereign over himself. I mean, why does individual sovereignty even matter in a system that's supposed to just focus on the greatest good for the greatest number?
Let's use a real-world analogy to make sense of this. Smoking. Mill argues that an individual is absolutely sovereign over their own body. Now, we all know smoking in private leads to terrible illness. It undeniably causes severe harm to the smoker. But, and this is crucial, because of individual sovereignty, a utilitarian like Mill would argue we must allow it. Banning a person from smoking in private is a direct attack on their sovereignty over themselves. The harm principle only kicks in if that smoking harms others, like the non-consenting public. If it doesn't harm anyone else, the sovereign individual gets the final say.
Okay, so we've got the individual sorted out. Let's pivot to Module 4 and unpack the mechanics of Mill's overarching ethical framework.
Remember how Bentham's Axe utilitarianism forced you to exhaustingly calculate the pain and pleasure of every single situation from scratch? Mill tossed that out and proposed rule utilitarianism. Here's how it works in 3 simple steps. First, we look back at human history to observe what actions have generally brought about the greatest happiness. Second, we take that historical data and formulate universal principles. Like society has learned that lying destroys trust, so we create the general rule, it is wrong to lie. Third, we apply that rule universally. Sure, breaking the rule might give you some short-term happiness today, but following it protects the long-term common good for everyone. You don't need a crazy calculus to figure out that giving to the poor is right. It's a well-worked historical rule.
But here is where things get super interesting. Mill actually admits there are extreme circumstances where breaking a well-established rule isn't just allowed, it's morally required. As he stated, to save a life, it may not only be allowable but an absolute duty to steal the necessary food or medicine, or even kidnap a doctor. Basically, if blindly following the rule causes a total disaster, like someone dying, Mill says you've got to break the rule for the greater good.
And that controversial little admission leads us perfectly into our 5th and final module, strong versus weak rules. Let's outline the major debate within rule utilitarianism itself.
You are definitely going to want to lock this comparison in for your revision. It maps out the clear difference between strong and weak rule utilitarianism. On one side, you have strong rule utilitarians. These folks believe rules established by utility should absolutely never be broken. Zero flexibility, they are absolute. But on the other side, you have weak rule utilitarianism, which maintains that while you must consider the rule, utilitarian principles can actually take precedence in specific situations. It's highly flexible. Because Mill openly says you can break rules in extreme cases to save lives, like stealing medicine, he is widely considered a soft or weak rule utilitarian.
Because of this, what Mill ends up creating is this incredibly fascinating hybrid system. It's deontological, meaning duty-based, because it heavily relies on these strict rules built from past historical experience. But at the exact same time, it's deeply teleological, or goal-oriented, because it's constantly keeping an eye on the final end goal of securing the highest quality of happiness. He brilliantly blends rules with the pursuit of ultimate utility.
As we wrap up your exam prep today, I want to leave you with one final, critical thought to chew on for your essays. If a weak rule utilitarian, like Mill, can just go ahead and break the established rules whenever a specific situation demands it for the greater good, did he actually fix the problems of utilitarianism? Or did he just accidentally collapse right back into the very flaws of Bentham's original act utilitarianism, assessing every single situation one by one all over again? Think deeply about that one, and best of luck with your studies.